And number 19 is all about tarot rituals that you have. And there's some things in setup, candles and incense and smudging and cloth, things like that. I don't really consider them rituals. I think the only ritual that I have, and it's very subtle, but there definitely has to be a little bit of a meditation before a little bit of a clearing of the mind and letting your own shit go so you can see clearly, so messages can come through clearly. If I'm dwelling on something else, like, that's all I'm going to see in the cards. So there definitely has to be some clearing, a little bit of creating a sacred space. And all of this, I try to do it before someone comes. And if I don't have a chance to really do it before, I can always do it when I'm just shuffling the cards. And I'm always kind of doing that there's a moment where I just get real quiet and just empty, like blank slate. Even before I am visualizing the question or saying the question again, there's a moment of, this is a sacred space, and empty yourself. That's really the only ritual that I sort of have. And number 20 is really fun too. What is your favorite pop culture tarot representation in a movie or a TV show? Favorite all-time tarot representation came from an episode of Xena Warrior Princess from way back when. The episode was called The Bittersweet, and it was a rekindling of their love and friendship between Xena and Gabrielle. They were at war with each other, and they fight and they fall off this cliff, and they wake up in this magical land of Illusia, it was called. And basically Xena's woken up by the Fool and journeys through all the tarot cards, and Gabrielle's woken up by the Hanged Man. And then together they journey through the rest of the tarot. It's kind of amazing. You see pretty much every single card represented in one scene or another at some point throughout the entire episode. It actually would make a really cool tarot deck. Xena becomes like the High Priestess. Gabrielle becomes the Empress at one point. They end up in a tower that's struck by lightning, and yeah, if you've never seen it, see if you can like stream this episode online or something. It's also a musical episode, so the whole thing they sing through the entire episode. It's really kind of silly and wonderful at the same time. It was like two of my favorite things collide: tarot and Xena. Really quick, there's also this other show that I just started watching. I think it's either like a Hulu show or an Amazon show. I think it's called Shut Eye. I want to say it's called Shut Eye. It's with the actor who used to be on that show Bird Notice. I can't think of his name. But anyway, it's about these like gypsies, sort of, that they're like con men. And the one main character is basically a fake tarot reader. Like, he just does it to pull one over on people. He researches them first, and all that stuff. But because there were tarot cards in it, I was watched it. I was interested. And there's even this one point, I haven't finished the whole series yet. I'm not sure where it ends up going. But there's this one point where he's reading for this woman who he knows everything about her. Like, he knows she already lost a child and all the details of her life because he researched her. But he actually does read the cards kind of appropriately. Like, each card he lays out, he talks about it in a way that is appropriate to that card, which isn't something you always see when you see people reading tarot on TV. It usually gets kind of silly. But you could tell the writers of the show actually did their work, even though the whole show is probably giving tarot and tarot reading a really bad rap. But it's cool to see some tarot reading on TV. I definitely love that show Penny Dreadful too. That was cool to see her read the cards. Okay, 21. Do you read your little white books and your guidebooks? How do you use them? And what's the last part? What do you do when the information seems to contradict a reading? That, honestly, that last question, that would never bother me. I get contradicted by books all the time. I contradict myself all the time in a tarot reading. You know, we're doing these videos, right, where I talk about the meanings of the cards, and for the most part, 50-50, it really is that in a reading. But, you know, each card in a reading can be like just one word in a sentence, and sometimes it's just that. It's just like one word or one feeling that combines the other cards together. You know, it isn't always necessarily what you think that card is going to mean. So if it's the opposite of what it would say in a guidebook, like that doesn't bother me. Even if it's information that comes like from the artist of that card saying this means this, you know, if I don't agree with that, that's fine. I think that doesn't freak me out really. And more often than not, the imagery on cards isn't at odds with what I think is appropriate for that card in most cases. If I do have a hard time, if I think it represents it a little funny or a little weird, I usually just sit with the card for a while and be able to come to a place where I look at it and I see what I need to see in that image. It sounds like I'm forcing something onto an image, doesn't it? But it doesn't feel like that. It's really just sitting with it and, you know, understanding the image in my own way. Anyway, that wasn't the question. How do I use my little white books? And guidebooks, I always read them. Even if it's a Lo Scarabeo keyword kind of thing, because like inevitably there's always at least one thing in a book that's new, that's different, that I'll take something away from it. And if it's a really good guidebook, has information that I want to absorb a little bit more, I do sit there and do readings with the guidebook open. But honestly, in most cases, the guidebook doesn't even have to be for that specific deck. Like, it doesn't matter. Does that answer that question? And number 22 is what tarot and oracle decks you use only for yourself, only for personal use. And there's definitely like runes for the most part too. I don't use too much with other people. I do have one specific rune set actually that I don't even show it on YouTube or anything. It's definitely only for personal use for a couple different reasons. One is it's a big part of my spiritual practice, that set in particularly, and also because it has my blood all over it. But when it comes to decks, I don't think I have any decks that I wouldn't use for other people. But I definitely have a lot of decks that I tend not to use for other people. There's certain decks that have like a lot of correspondences on them, like my Papa's Tarot, my Stairs of Gold. I don't know what it is. There's not a lot of visual going on. It looks like a lot of writing, and I just prefer to use those decks for myself. When I see all those symbols on there, that means something to me, and not necessarily to most people I'm reading for. Most oracle decks I tend to just be for my own use too. I do have one that I actually purchased really just for other people. I don't use it for myself. The Fool's Wisdom. I love using that one in my tarot readings. And number 23, this is right up my alley. What's your favorite tarot deck storage? If you guys watch my videos, you know I love to use little satin bags with some sort of a charm on them. First of all, it is a very inexpensive way to store decks, and it also condenses them down nice and small. They fit in a chest of drawers that I have, and I do keep a few decks in other types of bags, and I have maybe a couple decks that I do keep in special boxes, but for the most part, they're in my baggies. And number 24, what tarot deck do you wish existed? Now, I have to say, I agree with a lot of you guys who said that it would be really cool to see a lot of like these kind of novelty decks, but about like, you know, geeky pop culture stuff, you know, like a Doctor Who deck, a Star Wars deck, what was the other one? Harry Potter, and I don't know, all that stuff. And I totally agree. I would love to see those decks. They'd be really fun. That's why I made my own like pop culture deck, so it could sort of get all the geekiness out in a tarot way. Oh, you know what? There's this other one I just heard about. It's really exciting. It's not what I was necessarily hoping for, really, but I think it's just really cool that they're doing it. Spirit Science is making a Patch tarot. If you watch their videos, Patch is he's the little dude that does stuff. And they're creating an entire tarot deck. They just announced it just a month ago, like January 1st, I think it was their New Year's video. And apparently the majors are available right now as a digital download. And the rest of the deck should be coming along soon, including a actual printed hard copy. I'll put a link below to it so you guys can check it out. Patch Tarot! All right, number 25. If you could read tarot for 5 people, whether they be famous people, historic, whether they be alive or dead, or even fictional characters, who would they be? All right, here's my list. Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, number 1 on my list for sure. Would be an experience. Don Juan from the Nahual shaman from the Carlos Castaneda books. That would be fucking magical. Who else? You know what I would really actually love to read for? Someone like a David Rockefeller or one of the Rothschilds, you know, one of these like super rich, powerful, elite Illuminati people maybe, you know, but I would love to get some friggin' answers, to learn some truth about what's going on in our world. It would be cool to get some like definitive answers on some of our conspiracy theories and things, right? I would love to read for Russell Brand, actually. I'm very fascinated by that dude. Love him. And I don't know, maybe we gotta read Daenerys Targaryen's cards. We gotta know if she wins the Game of Thrones. We need to look into her future and see if the Iron Throne is there, if she rules Westeros. Yeah. All right, moving on. Number 26. What is the best piece of advice you have been given about working with the tarot? Now, I am very much self-taught. I don't think I've ever taken a tarot class at all. I have come across lots of people online, lots of people, even in real life, who are also tarot readers and have given me all sorts of amazing advice over the years. But I think the number one best piece of advice, I'm not even sure it was meant to be advice, but the best thing anyone ever said to me was, well, it came from my wife, and only a few years ago now, and it changed the way that I approach tarot, like, completely. I was reading cards for my wife, or we weren't even to that part yet, but she was she had a question, and I kept sort of rephrasing it for her, and she got really frustrated, and she like literally kind of got up and was like, I don't even want this. She's like, if you're not going to answer my questions, I don't want this. She's like, you always do this. I get really frustrated when you go to read my cards because I have a question and you turn it into something else. And I think I may have been a little worse with her than I was with other people, but you know, it'd be like, ugh, a yes or no question again, come on, like, you know, you can't ask that or don't ask this. And anyway, it finally clicked in that moment that that's not the kind of reader that I want to be. I think that, you know, after going back and reworking some things, I now understand that and believe that every question has value. Even if it sort of is a yes or a no question, there's value in that. And honestly, the other thing that I started to notice when I stopped rephrasing, I mean, sometimes I rephrase a little bit, but like I don't make them ask a different question that's appropriate for tarot really anymore, because the tarot, I have found, works it out itself. Honestly, it really does. even if it's something as crazy as a yes or no, the cards, they give you more information. I get so much more out of it. You know, you might not just get a yes or no answer. You might not even get a yes or no answer, but you know, you get more information, so it's fine. I used to stop people from asking about other people, because not even necessarily because I ever thought that it was bad to ask about other people. I was like, no, Tara's gonna talk about you, let's talk about you. But if we ask about other people, I'll get information about that person, but it always links back to them, you know, it just happens. So it was a change that I really did need to make, and a really, really good one. So now I just sort of operate under the understanding that, you know, whatever you're asking it's okay. That's your question. That's what you're coming with. I think the most sort of tweaking I do of people's questions now has to do with more if I feel like they're afraid to ask what they really want to ask. You know, it's just a cover. If it's like a cover question, you can kind of tell that sometimes, and we'll just push a little bit harder and get a little bit more out of them. All right, number 27 is, what tarot spread are you currently working with and using? And for me right now, it's the Pythagorean Tetractys spread. It's a very common and fairly popular tarot spread, and I have worked with it a lot before. Currently actually trying to add some more layers of meaning into it. Let me describe the spread first. Basically, it's a 10-card spread in the shape of the Tetractys. So you have 4 cards on the bottom, your quaternity, your earth, air, fire, water. 3 cards on top of that, your triad, your past, present, future, or creator, sustainer, destroyer kind of a thing. And then you have your dyad, your yin and your yang, your light and your dark, your anima and animus, or conscious and unconscious kind of thing. And then 1 card on top is your monad, your theme, the conjunction sort of a thing. So what you have when you have those 10 cards is you've also created 9 triangles for yourself. So that's really sort of where I'm creating a new spread inside of an old spread kind of a thing. And if you've never created a spread or created layers to a tarot spread, or layers on top of a tarot spread like that, I think that the best way to do it is to just keep doing readings. And for me, I'm seeing what's coming in these triangles before I put any sort of a title to it. Seeing just what keeps happening every time I do a reading like that. And we've narrowed down, for the most part, what each of these triangles is going to be in my finished spread when I'm done. But yeah, the Pythagorean Tetractys spread. And number 28 is, what are your favorite tarot reading accessories? You know, how do you set the mood? So I definitely do a lot of the common things, you know, some candles, a smudge, or an incense. I do, when I'm doing a tarot reading in person like that, like to have some relaxing background music sort of playing. Also, in all honesty, this is one of my favorite tarot accessories. See that? This is it's a coaster, like for drinks, and that's exactly what I use it for. I am really, like, kind of anal about my fear of people's drinks, or my own drinks, spilling on my reading table and like ruining a deck of cards. I fear it because it has happened several times. It's terrible. So when people come, they often come with a bottle of water or something, or I'll offer them a cup of tea. The coaster that sits actually on their side of the reading table is only for drinks that can be closed, like a bottle of water. And also so I don't get, you know, water on the table, because if a card does make its way over there, it's gonna get ruined if it slides through their, you know, drink stain. But for, you know, a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, I actually keep a, what do you call those things, like a tray table unfolded separate from my reading table so they can put their drinks or whatever in their purse on that area, and it doesn't mess up my shit. I do have actually one other sort of thing I use. It's more to set my mood. I'm not wearing it. For time's sake, I'm not going to go through and show you guys what's in here, but it's basically a little medicine pouch that has some power objects in it, basically, and I created it with the express purpose of being like a divination mojo bag, basically. Yeah, I'll do another video at some point and go through everything that's in here, because there's a lot of meaning behind what's in here, and I don't mind sharing it with you. I recreate it over and over several times. This is one I've had just for maybe 6 months or so now. And if I don't have it when I'm reading, or if I do an impromptu reading out and about or something, like it's not the end of the world if I don't have it. But if I'm in my environment and doing my thing, I will definitely wear my little medicine pouch. The tarot divination pouch. And number 29, we're getting there. 29, the tarot deck that you get stuck on, or that gives you nothing in a reading, but that you don't want to give up on just yet. Okay, so I certainly do not have this problem a lot. I usually do a lot of research, and I'm usually pretty much right. Most of the decks that I do in the giveaways on the channel, or that I have gotten rid of in the past, have actually all been decks that I didn't set out to acquire. You know, they came with something else, like in an eBay order or something like that, or one of them was like a gift. I just couldn't get on with it, and there's usually no real rhyme or reason to it. Just for whatever reason, the imagery doesn't speak to me, and I didn't feel the need to keep trying to make it work. You know, I'm like, it's okay, I'm not in love with it anyway, even though they're all beautiful. Like the Golden Tarot of Klimt, I think that's going to be the next giveaway on the channel. It's so beautiful. I really do find it beautiful, but I don't know, I just don't feel it. And I spent a lot of time with that deck. I studied it, and I get it. I actually do. I feel like I get it. The card images actually, they do make sense. I don't know, there's just this weird little disconnect with it when I try to actually use it. But that's fine. I'm not going to force myself to. One, though, that it's perfect for this answer. Like, I'm not giving up on it. It did serve the purpose that I bought it for. You can't tell what deck that is. This is my my Heindel tarot. Looks like that. And I actually did buy it, not really thinking I would read that much with it. There's a lot of correspondences and things on the cards. Like there's Hebrew associations I don't necessarily agree with, and runic correspondences that I, for the most part, don't agree with. And there's also I Ching symbols on all the minor arcana cards, which I kind of knew I wouldn't love having them on there, but all of this stuff, all of these associations and all the imagery on the card was something that I felt like I really wanted to explore. I spent a good chunk of time with this deck. I bought both of Rachel Pollack's books for the Heindel Tarot, and I really got into it. A lot of it was really interesting, and added a lot of, it was just gave me a lot more understanding of tarot in general. It was a fun project, using this deck, and I do little readings with it and stuff, but it was for that. It's distracting to have all these other symbols and stuff on it, and it is mostly a pip deck, so it shouldn't be that distracting, but yeah, I do have a hard time reading with it, but I'm not getting rid of it, and I don't know, I'd like to be able to read with it, honestly. I'm not giving up on it. Even if I am like never able to actually read with this one, like, I would still probably always hold on to it. It was such a valuable learning tool for me to understand these different associations that people have, and even to understand the I Ching correspondences. That's really kind of cool. Anyway, that's the Heindel. We're not giving up on it. All right, and number 30, your favorite tarot card, art or meaning or both. So my favorite tarot card, like of all time, I think, I say I think because, you know, your favorites sort of change all the time, but I do find myself always being drawn back to the Hermit card. This is just an example from the Tarot of the Holy Light of the Hermit. But I don't know, he's just, there's something very magical about the Hermit card, right? He's very, very spiritual. He's the light and a guide through the darkness. And that's very comforting. As far as my favorite sort of artistic, my favorite art on a card, my favorite bit of imagery would definitely, I know, shocking, right? It comes from the Marielle, the Magician card. I don't even have the words. It's so beautiful. Something kind of hermit-like about that one too, actually, isn't there? Oh, there really is. I never noticed that before. But yeah, most of my favorite tarot artwork mostly comes from the Marielle, probably too. All right, guys, number 31. We made it. Last question. And the last question is, what will you not do a reading about? You know, where do you draw the line? So, you know, it sort of goes back to that whole, when I was talking about the advice that I got and how I stopped changing people's questions. You know, I think that all questions are worth exploring and worth answering. And in all honesty, in my experience, there really isn't a line that I've ever come close to crossing or that I could even foresee myself coming close to crossing. I read about people other than the client or the querent. If you want to ask me about somebody else, I don't have a problem doing that. I don't see anything wrong with that. Like I said, what always inevitably happens is the focus of the reading, even if I don't think it's going to, it will inevitably shift back to the querent and how whatever you're talking about relates back to them. Like, even if they were asking about, I don't know, the politics in a foreign government in a foreign country, what will happen, you know, we'll talk about that and explore that, or the tarot will, or I will, whatever, however it works. But like I said, it'll lead back to them somehow. It'll be like giving me these messages, maybe that, you know, this is important to you because, or this is freaking you out because, you know, even if I don't foresee that happening when we're laying out the cards, it's really kind of amazing. So I don't know, maybe that could help you guys out too if you've had that problem where you're pissing people off not answering the questions that they're actually bringing to you, because I know I had some experience doing that. And yeah, my advice would be then to just sort of let it roll and see where the reading takes you. And I do, by the way, have respect for you guys who don't read about other people. You know, I can understand where that comes from. Like, I don't personally believe that it is an invasion of privacy. You know, we all live in this world, and yeah, I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm actually poking around somebody else's brain, you know. I think what the tarot does in a case like that is it just sort of, it picks up on we all exist in a web of interconnectedness. So it picks up on, you know, what's going on over here and what's going on over here. That's sort of how I look at things. But yeah, I have no qualms. All questions are welcome. So yeah, I hope that made sense. And yeah, dude, we did it. 31 days of tarot in one video. Woo! Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks, Ethony.